Now, a trade spat between Kenya and Tanzania that seemed to have been resolved remains. The East African neighbours inked a fresh pact last Sunday in a deal that was supposed to lift restrictions Kenya had imposed on Tanzanian wheat, flour and liquefied petroleum gas. Now, Tanzania was expected to remove its blockade of Kenyan milk products and cigarettes. However, Kenyan Permanent Secretary in charge of trade is quoted by local media as saying he could not get through to Salam authorities for explanations on Tanzania's introduction of fresh hurdles for Kenyan goods. Margarine, ice cream and tobacco are some of the goods facing hurdles in accessing the Tanzanian market. Now we're joined in the studio by Patrick Tonui. He's a business environment specialist from the Kenyan Private Sector Alliance. Welcome to the studio, sir.
Thank you very much.
Now, we do know that meetings took place today between Kenyan traders and Kenyan manufacturers on this issue. They're saying that they've been blocked when it comes to taking their goods to Tanzania. What was the outcome of that meeting?
So, the meetings have been taking place not just today, but we've had previous meetings on this issue. And we find that the manufacturers are saying that when they try to get their goods through the borders, there's still a problem. And beyond that, the processes that they need to follow to allow them to send their goods are still laborious, which is a big issue for us.
So what was the outcome? I mean, how are you looking to approach this going forward?
So on the private sector side, what we really need is the issues out of the way. We're looking beyond the pronouncement and the announcements of goodwill and intentions. We actually want to see a fundamental difference made so that goods and trade is actually able to be done efficiently. We are actually engaged from a private sector side, and we're actually planning for a visit to meet with the private sector in Tanzania so that we can engage them, because this dispute not only hurts Kenya, but it also hurts the private sector in Tanzania and is restraining the business that the two countries are doing, and we need this issue resolved.
Now, can you give us a clearer picture of the impediments that traders and manufacturers, Kenyan traders and manufacturers, faced when trying to get their goods across the border?
So there's actually a number of issues that happen that fall into different areas. Some of the issues start off with non-recognition that some manufacturers' goods are actually Kenyan goods, which means under the East Africa Community Protocol, they need to be given preferential access and they shouldn't be charged external tariffs. So when the goods don't get that, that means the companies, the manufacturers or their customers have to pay those customs duties before the goods enter into Tanzania. That's one of the forms that some of these barriers are entering. The other forms are actual restrictions where some goods are actually prevented from entering the market for some reason. A lot of the times the reason will center around a technical issue that they don't have a permit or they don't meet a certain standard. But from our viewpoint, some of these are actually technical barriers to trade that could be better handled.
Now, going forward, how do you see this trade spat impacting on business between the two countries going forward?
It's actually already hurting business. It's hurting investment. It's hurting Tanzanian investors as they try and do business in Kenya. It's hurting Kenyan businesses as they try and do business in Tanzania. We've had some of our members have explained that their staff that are working in plants they've established in Tanzania have had to leave because of issues around work permits, or in some cases even spend some time behind bars because of that, which is a problem. It's hurting everybody. And in our viewpoint, when you look, the East Africa community presents a significant potential to get trade going and have an impact for the lives of people here in East Africa. But right now the performance is, our internal trade is less than 10% of all trade into EAC. We should be pulling together to pull all our trade numbers up and not hurting each other, and in the meantime allowing all these external goods come into our markets, which is not hurting it. Is not helping us as East Africans. And I think that's the one thing we want to remind all our leaders. We should be pulling together to actually get this out of the way.
Now, we haven't heard from Tanzania's government just yet on what's going on. Kenya's government says they're still trying to get in contact with Tanzania's government to discuss this. So what do you hope to see, or what do you hope to hear from both sides? And what would you like Kenya's government to do about this?
I think our government is doing we are aware, and we have tremendous support from the State Department of Trade and the Minister and the Principal Secretary. I think they're doing a lot. I think what we would really like to see is the agreements and the decisions implemented. As I've mentioned, we on the private sector are also engaged with the private sector in Tanzania. And we hope that they also will work with us so that we communicate jointly to both governments and really show them that it's hurting, and if we work together, we can lift all our companies. And a Tanzanian exporter that's selling to Kenya, it denies them an export, it denies a Kenyan company a product they need, and vice versa. If a Kenyan company isn't able to export into Tanzania, for example, we've had the milk issue. The company that's been denied is an investor in Tanzania and has a plant there. How will that plant operate if they don't have the ability to get product that they need into that plant?
Well, we'll certainly be watching how the issue progresses. Many thanks for joining us in the studio.
Thank you.
Of course, that was Patrick Tonui. He is with Kenya's Private Sector Alliance.